It is a pleasure to be here again today. My name is Samuel Folani Ibelo, the founder of SAWOB Concept. I would like to appreciate our speaker for today's webinar in person of Scholar Sharif Aliu. He is a graduate of Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. So we finished from the same university, our first degree, and is a 2 times Commonwealth Scholar. He had his master's degree from Newcastle University. That should be between 2019 and 2020, if I'm right. Currently, he's a PhD candidate at the Bow Food System, University of Rhode Island, where he works on sustainability and equity assessment of controlled environment agriculture. As I said earlier, he holds a bachelor degree in agricultural administration. That should be Harvard, first class honor from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria. So this session will be hosted by SAWOB Concept. We are not a traveling agent, but an educational consultancy services. We try to bridge the gap between what is known and what is not known, and we try to impact our community by organizing webinars, giving them insights on how to go about applications for self-sponsored or scholarship opportunities across the globe. So, and I also like to appreciate Ojedin and Tawakat for recommending Scholar Sharif for this webinar. We are really grateful. Thank you so much. And also try to acknowledge our team, Zainab, Mariam, Dukulai, for doing the wonderful job, for making us to be online today. Thank you. So today we'll be talking about the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. It is one of the prestigious scholarships across the globe. Personally, I've applied in the past. I didn't get it, but I got like all those partial funding from Newcastle, Aberystwyth Switch, some other universities I could not remember again. So today we'll be hosting Scholar Sharif Aliu to discuss with us on how to navigate the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, a practical guide from aspiring scholars. And I saw one of his posts on LinkedIn recently. He has won this scholarship 2 times for his master's and also maybe Commonwealth scholarship for PhD. So, however, I decided to move to the US. So thank you so much. And Scholar Sharif, please, you have the floor now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bello. First and foremost for inviting me, and also to Talcott. I don't know if she's there for making the connection. So basically, just let me share my screen. Yeah, please do let me know once you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, again, thank you, Dr. Bello, and thank you everyone for making the webinar. I do probably think this is something that should have happened earlier, but most importantly, it's happening. And I'll be talking about the Commonwealth Scholarship, talk a little bit about my journey, and talk a little bit, I will try to ensure that a lot of the conversation is about the nitty-gritty of the application. And yeah, that's me there at the Commonwealth dinner. As of this time, this was probably one of the best dinner of my life. In November 2019, where we had the scholarship. We're trying to do some Yoruba demon kind of thing there. And yeah, and just about my Commonwealth story, I wanted to talk a little bit about it, just to give a background. I do hope that we get some insight there, because I know like the audience is diverse and we are at different stages in our life and in our career. But I did the Commonwealth. I won the Commonwealth for the first time during my NYSC. I just graduated with my bachelor's. So the very first thing I did, actually, which I didn't put in here, when I graduated with my bachelor's, the first thing I did like a week after was to go and do like IELTS, because at that time I just wanted some advantage. So I actually had an IELTS, which I actually scored very well, probably 8.0 in the IELTS exam. But at that point in my life, I had this thesis that I needed to school outside the country. Um, and because at that point, I thought that almost everybody that has made a significant impact in the country actually schooled outside the country. So I had that bias at that point. That has changed a little bit, but that was my mindset then. So going into NYC, I was crazy about scholarship, and I did write my first SOP at the NYC camp. Between parade, for those of us that don't NYC, between parade, between going to eat, between doing all of those things, the few times I had to myself, I was writing a paragraph each. One paragraph. Every 2 hours, I write a paragraph. Every 1 hour, I write a paragraph. And that was how I wrote my first SOP that I used then to apply to Southern Illinois University and the Achieving Scholarship. The first scholarship I applied for was Achieving. And I tried everything like a lot of people. Achieving, Endeavor Leadership Award, MasterCard to UBC, Erasmus Mendels. But the first one that really worked was the Commonwealth. So if you're probably in a similar situation where you're trying a lot of things, I think my first message is just to hang in there and keep trying. And yeah, this was in May 2019. I remember that day I was going back. I was serving. I was going back with my boss. We were in his car. That was when I got the email from Newcastle University that, oh yeah, you've won Commonwealth Scholarship. And I remember screaming in the car, and my boss had to like match the brake because he thought something happened to me. I was like, I just want a scholarship. I just want a scholarship. And that's been the beginning of my Commonwealth journey. And it has been nothing short of my transformational for me. The exposure, the knowledge, the social circle, the change in perspective, the change in worldview has been really, really amazing. And yeah, just talking briefly about the benefit. This is one of the few scholarships that you have that takes care of everything. I think in my opinion, the only scholarship that I feel probably has something a little bit better is the MasterCard, where they pay for your, I've seen people where the MasterCard pays for your passport or something like that. But aside that, the Commonwealth covers everything. So it's literally like a free ride, right? It's also interesting because you can actually go to the best schools in the world. You could go to Oxford on the Commonwealth. You could go to Cambridge. I'm not sure if they're part of it, but at the time, even on these scholarships, I have people who went to like Imperial College in London. So you can literally go to schools that have a tuition of like £40,000, £30,000 on the Commonwealth Scholarship. But talking about the benefits, right? You get a fully funded round trip ticket, your full tuition fee is covered, you get a monthly stipend, you get a 114 allowance. This is the interesting one. So you get to Newcastle today. The next day you go to the financial office and they give you that money in cash. I think as around that time it was about 431. You can also get like a thesis preparation grant, and also depending on the university, a lot of universities actually give their master's students some grants to do their thesis. If you're going to the UK, you have to do your TB test, and they will actually like reimburse you for that TB expenses. If you have a child and you're a single parent, provided you have the right documentation, you get an extra money, around £600 for that child. So it's definitely worth it. And also like disability support. When you win the scholarship, they will send you two things, like, are you accepting the scholarship? And they will also send you a disability form, right? So if you have any kind of disability and you require some kind of support, you fill it in there and they will do an assessment and they will try their best in conversation with the university to provide you disability support. That could, for instance, what that means in practice is you could have a designated car that comes picks you from home every day for your lectures. So they really have those kind of system in place to just make sure that you have a fulfilling and well-rounded education for your masters. Yeah, how to apply. I don't want to talk a little bit too much about these, but the first thing to think about is you have to choose an approved course. And this is important because, again, there are like 3 or 4 types of Commonwealth, but this is Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. So they have some courses that has been distributed or classified under about 5 teams. and you have to check for those courses and pick the university and pick the course. That's like the very first part of it. And I think that takes me to some of the tips or the very first points I want to make. This is really where you start winning or losing your Commonwealth scholarship journey. The selection of the courses and the selection of the schools. I always say, like a lot of scholarship or like a lot of things, you have to earn it. But Commonwealth is also interesting because I feel like it's one of those universities, one of those scholarships where the university actually puts in effort year in, year out to ensure that this scholarship keeps running. So this is what I mean. Before the application opens, the first step of that scholarship is that the Commonwealth would reach out, they'll put out a bid and say, oh, we have the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship coming on under these themes. Universities should submit courses that fit under these themes, and then we will then select from the university. So every university has a maximum of 10 slots. So universities actually prepare applications for the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship and then submit it to the Commonwealth, the CSA actually. The CSA secretariats, and then they review it, and then they will approve the courses and give them some slots. The maximum is 10. So you see some schools have 2 slots, some schools have 8 slots. And that's where I said, this is where you actually start winning. So you need to find the right course, the right school, and also try to see the number of slots that those schools have. There are some schools that have just 2 slots. You know that that's very competitive. There are schools that have 8 slots. I think the best strategy is to just mix it. And then so you choose the course, choose the universities. You have to do 2 separate applications, apply to the university separately, and then apply to the Commonwealth Scholarship separately. This is one of the reasons where people get tired of it. And a lot of scholarships are actually like that. This is a very important thing. You can apply to multiple courses, but accept only one award. So, and this is probably one of the best things, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in details. You can actually make multiple applications. So the scholarship allows you can actually make 10 applications. You can make 5 applications. You can make 7 applications. It's not just about making one application. But in the end, if you get the scholarship, you have to only accept one application. And the way it works, right, the scholarship is funded by the CSE and also by the university. So when you submit all your applications to the Commonwealth, in that application, you picked a host university, the university you're applying to, right? So I made the first application, I picked Newcastle University and the course. I made the second application, I picked University of Exeter. I made the third application, I picked Nottingham-Trent University. So they will send all those applications to the university, and the university then ranks those applications, and that's how they pick their candidates, the ones that they will nominate, and of course the people that will place on reserve. So again, you have to make multiple applications if you want to win the Commonwealth. I've only met very few people who made, I don't even think I remember meeting anyone who says that, or they only make one application. And you can always make the application. The only format is online. So some of the things I do want to talk about, and I've been getting into it, is, the very first round is the cliche, start early. But I think in this time, it doesn't apply anymore because the scholarship closes in a few days. So it's really about the final push. We are at the stage right now where we have to give it the final push. So give it all. Select very similar courses. This is very important. I talked about making multiple applications, but it's very difficult if the courses that you selected, they are far. So for instance, during my own time, Newcastle, I selected food security and sustainable agriculture and food security at Newcastle. Exeter, I selected sustainable agriculture and food security again. At Cranfield University, I selected MSc in future food sustainability. At Nottingham-Trent University, I selected MSc in global food security. They are very, very similar courses. So you stand a very good chance when you select courses that are very similar, and just actually focus your efforts on that, right? And not selecting courses that are too far apart. That's a lot of effort, and that might not be in the best position to make the best application. So having selected all these courses, 4 or 5 courses that you selected, this now gets to quality and quantity, right? It's a numbers and also a quality game. So basically, you have to make one application, the first application, where you put in all of your efforts. That is the bedrock, the foundation of your application, the first one. In my own case, it was Newcastle. That was the first application I made. And I put in a lot of my effort in that. And then you then recycle that application, make changes to that application for the subsequent submission. Again, it is a quality and quantity game. I've met people who says, the one I actually got was the last one I did. I've met people who say the one I actually got was the one I asked my friend to submit on my behalf because I was just too tired doing this one. I just gave this friend of mine this application and then they just submitted it on my behalf. And that was the one I actually got. And we'll get into that. Now going into the applications, so details also matter. One thing is that the questions, they are mostly double or triple barreled. And you have to break it down. You have to break down those questions. That's the first way to actually prepare a very solid application. So for every question, there are always secondary or tertiary questions. And you have to answer all of those questions succinctly within 200 words or within 500 words. So you have to break it down and know, like, what are the backbones of this question? What are the non-negotiables in this question that I cannot miss, that I must respond to? Because in the end, they are grading you with an evaluation rubric. And if you miss those questions, you don't touch on those points that you're supposed to touch on, you miss very good points. So if you're already making your application or you're very advanced in your application, one thing I want you to do is go back to those questions and say, okay, how many questions are in this question? Some are 3 layers, some are 2 layers, and then break that. And did my response effectively answer those questions? And when you do that, which takes me to this point where you have to use signposts very, very well to then add well to that. In answering those layered questions, you have to use signposts. Guide the reviewer, make the job easier for the reviewer. Say, hey, this thing you're asking me, it is here. They're talking about, use those signposts. It makes it a lot easier and makes your application stand out. The other thing I do think really, really helps is putting your foot down, being specific. And this is really quite interesting. I've reviewed a few applications this year, probably 1 or 2. And also in my experience with applications I've reviewed in the past, of course, I always review application every year, Commonwealth, because of the network. But one key thing that I do think really, really helps to make a winning application with Commonwealth is being specific and not being abstract. And that's something that I see that a lot of prospective candidates actually struggles with. And now that we actually even have AI, it makes it even a lot easier, right? So you have to put your foot down and really be specific. And I'll give you an example about what I mean. Try to give you some examples from my own applications of some applications. So you have to be very, very specific. So for instance, we're talking about you have about 3 or 4 development impact statements. And you can be abstract. You have to say, and I always recommend, one thing we need to keep in mind with the Commonwealth is it's very development focused, right? It's very development focused. And I think one thing I wanted to probably didn't get here is from those development focus, you stand a very good chance when you recommend or you propose a project. I'm going to do this project. It doesn't matter. No one is going to review the accuracy, the correctness, the appropriateness. No one is reviewing that project in its entirety, whether that project makes sense. But the fact that you are actually proposing a project that you intend to do, and you actually set out clear deliverables, would always distinguish you from a lot of applicants. You also have to tell a coherent story. And this is very, very important. I'll give you also some examples of that. In the end, you have someone who's reviewing 50 applications. That person has to remember you. It is as much an objective evaluation, but there are also biases and subjectiveness, particularly when you have a large application pool. So you have to make sure that you tell a story, you have a narrative that actually builds onto each other. and connect to each other. I'll give you an example. Your career plan. You have a short-term career plan, right? 5 years, and then you have a long-term career plan. They have to speak to each other. They cannot be separate. They have to connect with each other. In my experience, that really, really works well. You have a development impact statement where you've been talking about what you intend to do. They have to speak with your career plan. You have to connect it. So if I have it in there in my development impact statement, I said, I am going to create an extension model village, right? And then in my career plan, I then say something like, I'm going to be the CEO of a startup or something like that. That connection is not there. So everything must be coherent and connect. That is what will stand you out. Very not so consequential points that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but it does make a lot of difference in making it easy to read. Now you've pulled together the application on a Word document, and now you're copying and pasting. I feel that's a given actually. If you want to apply for scholarship, you have to make the application on a Word document, download the sample questions, which is there online, and then make those questions on a Word document. But you also, this is something that a lot of people always kind of forget. So you're copying those responses, you're pasting it into the form, and it's all lumped together. I feel that you must always make it a lot easier for people, particularly for your main points. So you're talking about career goals, right? For instance, with the things you intend to do. So try to use your entire a lot more. Try to use entire a lot more. And that actually separates your main point. And by the time the person is printing it, that space is there. It makes it easier to actually get those points and to actually remember it. Also get it reviewed. It's always important to get a second eye over it. I do know during my own time, I have 2 scholars also from FNAP actually review it. I had 1 scholar review my SOP, and then I had another scholar review my application. And the comment they actually gave me was actually very important. Again, make sure that you do not repeat your CV in there. You want to provide more details, more context about your CV. Every advantage that you have, you want to use it because you are in competition with a lot of people that have similar profiles. A lot of people who win Commonwealth, I do have to say this, that's a bias with Commonwealth. A lot of people who win it are probably people with first class. So you have maybe 60%, 6 out of 10 are people with first class. So you're in competition with a lot of people that have similar profiles. And again, look at the start. I said 6 out of 10. It doesn't mean that if you don't have the first class, you can win it. You can win it. You can definitely win it. There are people without first class that definitely want the scholarship, hands down. And the key is really the detail, the amount of details that they actually provide in the development impact statement. That is very, very key. Those 4 development impact statements, the way you respond it, I think it's a really big part of the evaluation rubric. So talking about some examples about some of the things I've talked about. I talked about being specific. I talked about making a difference. I'm just giving you some snapshot of some application. This is example 1. So look, this is, for instance, one of the development impact statements that we're talking about. If you look at this snapshot, right, you will see something like, as a lecturer and researcher at Ambrose University, I'll push for the establishment of extension model villages in strategic communities across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. So exactly what I want to do is clear extension model village. And this is where it gets creative, right? No one is asking you to create a project entirely. You can actually research existing projects and propose to do something similar, right? There's Google, there's Apple, right? So it's not bad. There's Samsung. So for instance, this is some snapshot from my application. This was exactly, as at that time I was serving Ambrose University, and my supervisor was proposing to do this, and I was a big part of it. And that's just what I said I was going to do. And then therein, I will introduce farmers to crop and livestock varieties that are adaptable. Again, this is getting a little bit more specific. So when you create this extension model village, what are you going to do? What are the activities? What are the things that will be happening in that extension model village? Very sequential. Create an extension model village and say, oh, in that extension model village, I'm going to introduce farmers to improve crop and livestock variables. And interestingly, during my NYC, I was already doing that. I was in conversation with NIOT, right, to get pineapple varieties that we're going to give to a village MWE extension modeling. So think about where you are, think about your current experiences, think about the things that you've been involved with, and write that story, package that story, make it sequential, make it logical, and that's what's going to make a difference. That's what's going to make the reviewer to remind you. Again, going further, I will conduct trainings and demonstration. So I talked about introducing them to varieties. So I'm going to give them pineapple, free pineapple, that they would otherwise not have access to, right? I'll conduct trainings and demonstrations to aid the adoption and implementation of climate smart, sustainable agricultural practices. So that sequence. And this goes then to the next thing. So I think at this time, we have those development impact statements, they kind of lump together. It was probably one question of 500 words or 700 words, but this is just some snippet of it. Now think about this. How will you determine that? So let's go. The combined effect of these activities, which will be implemented between January 2021 and December. Now I've reviewed the application. I've never seen an applicant put in timeline in there before. So this is the kind of detail I'm talking about. This is the kind of being specific that I'm talking about. You put in the timeline. What are the outcomes that you actually want to measure? At defined intervals, I will measure the productivity of farmers using the ratio of index of local agricultural outputs to the index of total inputs used in farm production. God knows that when I was writing that, I don't understand all of that entirely. But I do know that I need to put in place clear outcomes that you can actually measure, and the values obtained will be compared to with past records to determine the impact of my work. So I want you to go back to your application and think about where you've been asked, how will you measure your outcome? Did you actually put in some indicators that you would actually measure in there? That's very important. Did you put in the timeline that you will actually do the project? That's very important. Are you gonna? I would probably definitely write this entirely different now because I'm a lot more experienced researcher now. I'll probably put in something like, oh, I'm going to do a longitudinal study. I'll probably put in something like, I'm going to do a difference in difference method. I'll probably put in something like, I'll do a quasi-experimental approach because I'm a lot more experienced. But the bone of the story is that you have to be quite specific, and that is what will make the reviewer to actually remember you, and that is how you're going to stand out. These are a classic demonstration of some of the stuff that I've been talking about upon graduation from Newcastle University. So it's a mix, a sandwich of your current experience, a sandwich of making very good research and whipping everything together. This is also an example. Now, I've been telling a story I said I want to become a lecturer. That was the story I was telling or whatever. And I said upon graduation, this is talking about my short-time career plan, right? So I want to progress through the ranks to become a lecturer too, even though that's not what I am right now. I also said, oh, I want to transfer from the Department of Agricultural Economics, where I'm currently domiciled. And I know Dr. Bello, or if you ever go to FNAP, you remember this, to the Institute of Food Security and Rural Development. I want to go to IFSERA. We call that place IFSERA, right? Because I'm doing a master's. I'm applying for a master's in sustainable agriculture and food security. So that narrative had to be correct. So I'm saying that it is these simple things that actually make a difference, that consistency in that narrative. So I said, I'll do a PhD in FNAP. Then what are some of the elements of that work? I would expose undergraduate to the elements, some of the things I'll teach about. So maybe at least 10 manuscript. If you see the flip side of that, the long-term career plan for that, it builds on this. It's not entirely different from this. It just builds on what I said I was going to do for my short term and what I say I was going to do for my long time. And if you go back to some element of my development input statement, I said, as a lecturer and researcher at Ambrose University, you could see that connection, right? And that was there. I'm also giving an example here for you, right? What you intend to achieve while you're studying for the program. So this is some of the examples of things that I actually intend to achieve. And in my experience, I always feel like this is one of the easiest questions to actually answer for that Commonwealth. The practical tip for that is, it's just restating the learning outcomes of that course for them. So for instance, I'm applying for MSc Sustainable Agriculture and Food Security. I'm going to go to that university website, look at the modules, and look at the linear outcomes in that curriculum. And that is what I will restate back to Commonwealth as what I intend to achieve. Because in reality, that's exactly what that course is intended for you to achieve. So you don't even have to like overthink it. You just have to restate it back and paraphrase it. And this is where you actually even do the work. You make it a little bit interesting, right? So I'm applying to 4 universities, right? I would go and look for all universities that offer those similar courses. And then I have a Word document and copy all of their learning outcomes. And then I will mix it together, select the best ones and paraphrase it and restate it back. And you can never go wrong with that approach. So that is you restating that learning outcome. Now, these are all snapshots from some part of my application. This is me talking about using those pages very well. And you could see that this is exactly how the reviewer will read it. It's not all lumped together. Some of the big part of my application, even though everybody fills the same application form, some of the big part of my applications are really, really quiet. One thing though, if you submit 2 blocks of career plan, I can bet with you that the reviewer will actually remember this more than you submitting like 2 blocks of career plan. I'm not saying submit a one-liner, but use those blocks very well. These are some of the things that is going to stand you out and put you in the best position at winning the scholarships. So I do want to make this as practical as possible. This is some general review and some general tips. If you do have specific questions, I can actually take it. And I do want to pose a question to you also as a way to kickstart that conversation. Again, if you have specific questions, so let me know. But I do think the question I want to pose to you right now is what's the biggest issue, or what are the biggest issues that you're facing right now in your application, and where do you need the most help? And I hope that I can actually help you with that. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Scholar Sharif, for that simplified tips, application procedures, and benefit of CSE. And just like you said, I remember maybe that should be a decade ago when I was applying for CSE. I looked most of the application together, and even when you plan to submit, maybe it's beyond the number of words allowed in the box, so you have to reduce. And just like you said, applying online, when you looped everything together, it's cumbersome for people to follow up. And just like when you submit a manuscript and the reviewers are coming back, they will give you the bullet point, 1, 2, 3. Then that makes it easy for you to be able to revise, argue, rebuttal, and all those kind of stuff. And also, it shows that the person is skillful when answering the essays or the questions in that particular order, like not just looping it together. And the truth be told is, I remember a Commonwealth Shared Scholarship is very competitive because they put some people in research, some are not even nominated, and I've never seen any Commonwealth Shared Scholars who fail to achieve their goals, like even the short terms and the long-term goals. Once you win the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, you can decide on what next you want to do. Do you want to go to industry? Of Femi Adams from FUNAB, now a very strong man in what do they call this? In drone application in Nigeria.
Femi and I, we're actually even the same set, right?
Oh, yeah.
The same set, yeah, Femi and I, yeah.
So it's always that way. And I know a lot of people who have won this scholarship that are really doing well. And just like Scholar Sharif said now, the application is going to close by December 9. But nevertheless, if you have not submitted, I believe there are some tips you could take home from this. And even if you are not planning to apply this year, maybe you want to apply for 2026, I believe you are getting the strategies in order to. And most successful application did not start towards the close of the application. It's by gathering information, building on it, and tailoring it towards your need. Like some people that will start doing their NYSC, and before they finish the NYSC, they already have offer letter or some. So please, if you have any question, You are free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat box. Thank you. Sorry, may I have a question?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, is it a must to have higher TS TOEFL to apply for Commonwealth Shared Scholarship?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not a must at all. As a matter of fact, even the Russell Group University. So like let's say Newcastle is a Russell Group University. So like Russell Group universities, they're like the top 24 universities in the UK. So like is one thing we're very crazy about in the UK. We're part of the Russell Group. So even at Newcastle, despite being a Russell Group university, you can get in with just your WIAC English. They are fine with you just having a pass in just having the credits rather, just having the credit in the WIAC English. So it's not a must to have IELTS or TOEFL at all to apply for the scholarship or to win it at all. And I felt like I was probably even the only one among the few people that I knew as at that time, among my close friends, probably myself and a friend that just had IELTS. A lot of people don't have IELTS.
Okay, thank you. There's a question in the chat box. Thank you so much for an inspiring section. Please, how do we know the available scholarship? Available scholarship in terms of what? Please, Shakia, can you rephrase your question? I think this one is, thank you for the insightful presentation. Who do we address the reference letter to? Is it to the university or to the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship?
Oh, to the Commonwealth Commission. That's fine. You just apply. It's funny, right, that they've changed the application. I think during our time, they would just ask you to provide the name of the reference, and they will only ask you to submit the reference after they have awarded you the scholarship. But now they've changed it, because I did went through the application myself before this, so to see how different it is, and because I've been reviewing some. So yeah, you actually apply, you address it to the Commonwealth Secretariat.
Thank you. Is GRE graduate record exam a must?
No, not at all. Like the UK is not. GRE is more a North American thing, right? In the UK,
Yeah.
they don't care so much about GRE at all. So you don't have to worry about that.
Is it a must to have publications? And if I have one, but it is not correlating to the chosen course, what is my chance of winning?
Again, the difference between nomination and reserve is very thin, right? It's very, very thin. I'll probably say the difference between nomination, reserve, and not being selected, that's maybe a bit wide. So I'll give you an instance. So I applied to 4 schools, right? I got nominated at Newcastle. I was on reserve at Exeter. And that's really how I knew I had a good application, because I was getting the nominations on the reserve. Then I got nominated at Nottingham Trent. And it's just those small details, like putting in a publication, putting in that you have a publication. By the way, at the time I didn't have a publication. Putting in that you have a publication, this extra care, being specific, spending the time to actually. So again, think about the application in 2 or 3 sections. The first section is where you provide your personal details. Spend some time with it. We don't talk a lot more about, because the reviewer is already having some idea about you, right? He's already building some, so it's like an appetizer. Prepare a good appetizer also. That makes all the difference. So you're talking about your employment history. Don't rush through your employment history. Talk about the jobs that you've done and what is interesting about those career details. Those details, that's what really do make the difference. Again, going back to the issue of the publication, put the publication, even if it's not correlating. The purpose of the publication is not just the correlation. And Dr. Bello will tell you, over your publication life, you'll do so many things. But even you being able to show that you publish already shows that you understand the ideas of scientific rigor and can actually execute the project and actually communicate it to the scientific community. So it will always give you an edge.
Yeah, thank you. So where can we see master's degree scholarship for UK? Like,
I mean, there are a lot of again, you can always follow SAWOB Concept. They will give you some. some scholarship. But there are also a lot of sites that you can, third-party sites that you can always follow, opportunitiesforafricans.com, etc.
Okay, there is another question now. Sorry. Aside cumulative grade point average, what is the main thing you think made your application strong and ultimately made sure they must select you? Like, what do you think made your application unique?
It's definitely not the GPA. The GPA is part of it because I was in a pool of people that had similar GPA. So I think it's just being very specific and knowing exactly what I said I was going to do. Being very specific, being detailed, and answering those questions. Yeah, I think it's just being very specific, not being very abstract. I think that's something that I see occurring in a lot more application. And showing a very, very good understanding of the issues that I am talking about. So for instance, your fourth development impact statement, you're talking about the global and local issue. How do you connect those issues together? Are you talking about topical issue? I'll give you an example, right? I can review an MSc, Sustainable Agriculture and Food Security, statement of purpose or scholarship application. And when you're talking about the issues in agriculture, I'll quickly know if you're bullshitting me or if you're so knowledge deficient. Because I know like some of the top, even though I'm not an animal scientist, I know some of the top issues in animal science, even though I'm not, So I'll quickly already know if you're bullshitting me or you just don't even know what you're talking about. So being able to demonstrate a decent, a reasonable level of expertise when you're actually even talking about the problem that you solve, I think is vital. Again, a reasonable level of expertise when you're talking about that problem. And the only way to do that is research. And then being very, very specific and detailed about the impact of the scholarship, what's going to have on you, and also what you intend to do after graduation will make all the difference.
Thank you. I would just like to add to this based on the question relating to publications. Your publications could make you or break you. Could make you if you have a good paper. A good paper means maybe you publish in a severe, just normal international journal that is not predictory, but could break you if you publish in predictory. I've once submitted a paper during my earlier careers trying to publish. I got an acceptance email within 24 hours. And I sent it back to them that this you said it's peer reviewed. How could you review a paper for 24 hours? Within 24 hours, send to 2 or 3 reviewers, and you are making your decision within 24 hours. I rejected the offer. They started emailing me like I should just pay $50, they will publish it. And I decided not to go out because publication itself will teach you a lot of things. Will teach you patience, perseverance, understanding of rigorous processes. I think I have a paper I've submitted since April, and I've only received the first decision of revision since April, more than 8 months ago. So if you submitted the paper and you are receiving decision within 24 hours and it's acceptance, trust me, is a predictive journal, except that paper has been reviewed by maybe sister journals earlier. Like if you submit in Gene and Gene rejected it and you transfer to Gene Report is just sister journal of Gene, then you could be sure that, oh, maybe you have made corrections to the comment and they are trying to accept it. Even despite that, it will not be within 24 hours. So please be careful of just publishing anyhow. It could even break your profile. Like it means you are not scientist per se, or you can't do due diligence. Thank you. So there is some questions here. Please let me check. There's a question. Okay, we are asked to upload our offer letter, but it was sent as a message on Gmail. How do we go about that? What if we have conditional offer? Please, do you get the question?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, so
Okay,
you just print it. So if you go on Gmail, I think you find some 3 buttons, right? So if you open the mail, top right, you should find those 3 buttons. I'm forgetting the technical term for it. And if you click it, you see the option of print. So just print that and upload it. That should suffice. If you have a conditional offer, it's still better. Upload it. It's not the best, but upload it. Again, I was actually anticipating this question, right? And I was thinking about it. And the response so the devil is always like, is in the details. It's just those small things. Particularly, people are always very tight. 0.5 difference. You'll be surprised the difference between the top candidate and they might not be up to 3 or 5 points, right? So it's that different. So I thought about it as a reviewer. If I'm faced with 2 people that rank the same, and one submitted offer letter, the other did not submit the offer letter, I will pick the one that submitted the offer letter, whether conditional or not conditional. So you're still better off submitting what you have. It's best if you can submit unconditional, but if you don't have it, submit conditional. If you have not received the admission, put the application number in there, right? Put the application number in there. So that's why I talked about giving it the final push. If you're at a stage where you have not even, just put in the application number in there. Even if you don't get it directly, you could be on reserve and the person and this is where it gets interesting. People get multiple offers. So people end up rejecting because they make a number of applications, they end up rejecting. So even if you start as a reserve, you could actually get upgraded to a nominee and you become a Commonwealth Scholar.
Salamatu Sumana, do you have a question? I saw you raising up your hand earlier. Sorry, do you have any question? If yes, you could unmute yourself. So there's another question here. In Commonwealth Scholarship, is it required that your solution must be domestic, like something in your home country? And are you always supposed to streamline your future plans to something you would do in your home country?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the fundamentals of the scholarship. Absolutely. It has to be streamlined to your own country. Every plan you have about America, just put it in the bag for now, or Canada. Just put it in the bag for now. And dream about Nigeria, just for the sake of Commonwealth. Allow yourself to dream about Nigeria and what you can actually do with that education. Yeah. Again, it's not legally binding. No one is going to come and say, hey, you said you were going to become an assistant lecturer or a professor, or you didn't end up. But at that point, and to be honest, I feel like you also have to believe in what you're writing for you to be able to write passionately. So at that point in your career, when you're writing about Commonwealth, you absolutely have to believe it.
Okay. I think can I add something to that? Even I think as a Commonwealth Scholar, your project must be related to your home country. Am I right?
Absolutely. No, I think your thesis doesn't have to be. They encourage you, but it's not a must that it's related to your home country.
Yeah, because I remembered one of my friends also in the US now. His project was on Nigerian cattle. I think his supervisor discouraged him from using British cattle breed. So we collected samples from Nigerian cattle breeds then for his project.
I think we're naturally inclined towards it more, but in the end, we don't. For instance, during my own master's, right, my project was in the UK, so I analyzed the whole agricultural landscape in the UK. Of course, there's a reason for that. There's a backstory to that. So I ended up analyzing the whole agricultural landscape, how people want the agricultural landscape to be. So I think for a project, not necessarily. But I do remember when I was doing the Commonwealth PhD, I wanted it to be in Nigeria as usual. And one thing that actually did happen before they actually awarded me the Commonwealth PhD was a day before they awarded me, they emailed my supervisor and said, hey, we like this guy, we want to award him the scholarship, but we're concerned that the amount of field work that he's proposing to do in Nigeria is a lot, right? Can you assure us that that would not kind of expand the timeline? And then the guy forwarded to me and said, this is what Commonwealth is saying. And then it was like, write something so that I can share with them that. And then I did a Gantt chart or something like that. And then I shared with him. And then I shared with Commonwealth. And that's in there they gave me the Commonwealth PhD. So that was very interesting. So yeah, ideally, and it's also good, right? Even from a finance perspective, if you're coming back home, for instance, I'm thinking about the Commonwealth PhD right now. So if I'm coming back home to do it, So I'm spending 6 months in Nigeria. I'm still on my stipend. I'm able to save that money. So a lot of us also you still get it. You're able to save away from your UK rent, and you still do really, really meaningful research. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it in Nigeria. You have that opportunity of, at the very least, geographical novelty, and you could also do a lot of novelty, right? So yeah, a lot of us lean towards it, but I don't think there is an explicit rule about it. Kind of flexible.
Badmus Olajumoke, please, could you unmute yourself and go ahead with your question? Salamatu Sumana, you can also unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity for this to share this knowledge with us. Now, if our undergraduate project work is not fully detailed, will it affect the publication? Like, will it affect the publication if the project work is not fully detailed?
Scholar Sharif,
Do
please,
you want to answer that?
Yeah, please, our speaker, could you answer if I have any additional, I will do that.
Okay, so I don't understand the question. You said if the undergraduate work is not fully detailed, so are you asking in terms of trying to publish it or in terms of trying to submit it for Commonwealth?
Yes, trying to publish it because part of our statement of purpose might include some of the work we did in our undergraduate studies. So if our project work is not fully detailed and want to publish it, will it be acceptable?
I mean, so it depends on the journal, right? So if you're trying to publish a work, right, in a very high impact journal or a journal with, let's say you're trying to publish with an Elsevier or a Springer journal, right? Most likely if the word is not, again, detailed is kind of relative. I don't know what you mean by detailed, but the point is it methodologically rigorous, right? The key thing you have to really worry about is what's the methodology of that work and what's the result. As long as those two are actually sound, the methodology is sound, is replicable, right? And the result is well presented. I think every other things are things that can be worked around. But I do, yeah, if the work is not great, it's going to get rejected in the journal. But I think that the best way to go is to actually show it to a more experienced scholar to have a look at it before you submit it. Yeah. And also, like in Commonwealth, right, you have very limited time to talk about your publications or the work that you've done before. So you can pick and choose the part of the work that you want to talk about. So you can focus a lot more on the result or focus a little bit on the methodology, but I do think you should be able to communicate what you've done. And if you do the work that actually end you a bachelor's degree, I think it's enough at that point. And no one is expecting a kind of crazy level of expertise. But if you're not convinced about the work, focus on the part of your project on the part of your profile that is strong. That's probably what I would advise. Focus on the part of your project. Is it your professional work that's strong? And that's all you do. I'll give you an example. I do remember when I was doing my PhD, when I was applying for my PhD, for instance, and it applies, right? One of the key things that stand me out was my consulting experience because I've been working in consulting. So I was able to talk a lot more about the stuff that I've been doing. So what kind of work have you been doing, your professional experience that you can actually, or even your academic experience? The most important thing is to tell a coherent story.
Yeah, thank you. Let me add to that. If it can be of two ways. If you have a bachelor degree project, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, does this work what's been published? Then if you think yes, publication could be in different forms. It could be a research note, a brief note. Maybe you have, just like Scholar Sharif said, if it's not detailed methodology, you want to focus it as just a research note or a brief note. Or even you just want to share it as a conference paper. You can share it as a conference paper with one figure, two tables, and also someone asked, There might be a situation where you have a good paper, but a good journal, most good journals, if they are not subscribed subscription type, you have to pay the APC to make it open access. You could write to the publisher or the editor to say, oh, this is my affiliation and I don't have funding for this project. This is the abstract. If the publisher is really interested, or if the editor is really interested in the work, they might give you 100% waiver. Even in frontiers, they do give 100% waiver. Don't go to MDPI. MDPI, they don't do that. Some journals in FCVR might consider you for subscription type, but it has to be a good paper. So there is always a way around. And just like he suggested, it's not only publication that make you worthy to win some award, some scholarship. It might just be your community service, like if you're applying for Chevron scholarship, no one cares about your publication. They are looking more at your community and leadership, community experience and leadership impact. So you have to understand the eligibility or the requirement for his scholarship. It's not the same. If you want to go to Hong Kong, at that point you might need maybe one SCI paper, which is not even a must. Maybe some professors will not take you if you don't have the paper. But trust me, it might not be a must. And that's why you see some advertised position. If they require you to have one SCI first authored paper, they will let you know. Don't limit yourself if the project or the scholarship is not requesting. Just try to understand the requirements for what you're applying for. Thank you. Scholar Sharif, are you still with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still
okay. So there is one question, maybe this will be our last question because it's weekend and I know you have a lot to do. Salamatu, please, do you want to say anything? Just unmute yourself and go ahead. And if not, I will read the last question before we go. Is it a must that a Commonwealth scholar help one to review the essay?
No, that's an interesting question. Right. I think you stand a better chance. It's not a must. Nothing is a must, actually. Even applying for the scholarship is not a must. So, but you stand a better chance. I'm not actually a Commonwealth scholar. If you have a Commonwealth scholar in your network, please use them. But if you do not have a Commonwealth scholar in your network, use what you have. But I do think there are a lot of Commonwealth scholars around that you should know someone who knows someone. You can actually connect to a Commonwealth scholar that would have a link. But yeah, it's not a must, but it definitely gives you an edge to have someone who has won it actually look at it. I know it gave me an edge because I spoke to 2 people who have won it and their advice. You know, I still always remember when I shared my statement of purpose with the first scholar I shared it with. As a matter of fact, I felt a bit offended when I was reading this comment. I remember there was something I wrote in the application, right? In the SOP, not even the Commonwealth Scholarship. And the guy was like, he put an emoji, he was like, Lord, you're trying to win a 30,000 pound scholarship. He just put an emoji, something like that. But of course, after some time, you get disconnected from that comment. And you're actually able to see the point that he was making. I was doing like a kindergarten storytelling. That was what was in there. So like, oh, this feels like a kindergarten rhyme. What you put in this SOP? This you want to win a 10,000 or 40,000 scholarship with a kindergarten rhyme. It is exactly what it is. That's what I have in there. I needed someone to call out my kindergartenness and actually put in my scholarly toga, and that's exactly what happened. So
I think we've answered this earlier. Is a publication a must before applying for Commonwealth Shared Scholarship? Capital no. Just leverage on your profile and try your best. And follow the tips given by our scholar today. So yeah, thank you so much, Scholar Sharif, for your time. We are really grateful. And could you please stop sharing your screen? I want to share something. Thank you. And we are really grateful for your time, your efforts, and your contribution to our community. And we also wish you all the best. So we'd just like to give you this as a token of appreciating your time, your presentation on behalf of SAWOB Concept. This is to certify that Sherif Value has made significant contribution at our webinar titled Winning the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, a practical guide for aspiring scholars. We extend our sincere gratitude, appreciation for your insightful and impactful presentation, which captivated the audience and enriched the knowledge of our attendees and our community. On behalf of ourselves, our attendees, and those who are still going to benefit from this webinar because we are going to share it, we are really grateful and we wish you all the best in your PhD, in your career, in your life. Thank you so much for your time. We are really grateful.
Thanks, Dr. Bello.
I will share with you later when
Yeah.
I sign it. Thank you.
Yeah, I really had a nice time, and thanks everyone. And I do wish everyone best of luck in the application.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we keep in touch. And just like before we go, if you are applying for any scholarship opportunity, you always have to network. Don't be on Facebook, don't be on TikTok without using it for your own advantage. That's just the truth. We are in the world where our network speaks for us more than our profile. You have to network with people. You have to stay connected with people who can even walk to people and say, oh, this guy deserves it. My present role that I'm doing in Canada is just for my LinkedIn post. And someone said, I'm going to meet this professor next week. I'm going to walk to him and said, do this guy qualify? But before I even did that, I still try as much as I could to prepare a cover letter, my CV, and some visa statement and send to him. So which means it's not about our capacity alone, it also determines by our network. A lot of us has one opportunities, striving to get one opportunity and leveraging on our network. The network is your network. Thank you and wish us all the best in our various applications.